Welcome back to the Pop Astrologist Presents, where astrology and pop culture align. And this week we are talking all things Wicked, the latest Wicked for Good movie. And here to join me in this astro pop culture conversation is someone who I have long been trying to collaborate with, but there was never really a good moment until now. Welcome, Tati, to the channel.
Thanks for having me.
You've seen the movie, of course, at this point. Man, how many times now?
I think I saw the first part at least like 10 times in theaters. And then the second part I've seen 3 times. Actually, no, I'm going for the third time later today.
Oh my God, Tati is solely responsible for half the global box office haul that this movie is pulling in. It was the number one movie in the world, obviously, last weekend, global box office wise. But before we dive deeper into the episode, why don't you introduce yourself to folks? Usually I note biases, i.e., what's your big three, just so people can have a sense of who you are and where your takes come from.
Yes, for sure. Thank you. So my name's Tati Petkovic. I'm an astrologer and brand strategist in Toronto, Canada, and I'm a Leo sun, Cancer moon, Libra rising with a Virgo stellium.
Oh, so good. Definitely check out Tati's page if y'all are interested. Do you have anything specific right now for the holidays, like branding or anything, or any like packages? I think you got like some year ahead stuff, right? Or is that all taken already?
Yes, thank you. So I have about a few more readings for 2026 readings.
Mm-hmm.
Those are taking place in January because they're sold out for this year, which is great. And then I also am launching my Bold as You mentorship program, which is a combination of astrology, brand strategy, social media strategy, mindset work, and energetic work to help businesses grow using astrology and all that jazz. So I'm very
Fabulous.
excited.
Yes, fabulous. Again, I'll have your information down below if you're interested in what Tati has to offer. Reach out to her, reach out to me. We'll put you in contact. But back to the main conversation at hand. So, this is more of a personal question. Did you prefer part one or part two, or are you indifferent to both?
Oh, that's a good question.
Mm,
I will say, after reflecting on it and
hmm
seeing the second one twice, I felt like the first one was a lot more uplifting and
hmm
happy. I think I do prefer the first one because of that
mm,
aspect.
hmm
However, I still really, really love the second part and I understand it,
hmm
but I think there was a part of me, my Cancer moon was like, oh, there's something missing that I loved
mm.
it so much, but there's like this one part where I'm like,
You can't put your
enjoy.
finger on it.
Yeah.
I was gonna say if your Virgo could refine and edit it to the level of perfection, what do you feel like was missing? And it doesn't have to be an absolute science because, obviously this is very subjective, but yeah, based on your placements, because your placements are so well adept at finding the flaw and correcting, what would you have altered about the second if you could?
Oh, so yeah, I'd love to hear your take on this too.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for me, so I never watched the play, I sh or
Mm-hmm.
musical. I do want to preface that as
Yeah.
also I
Same.
okay, so
Same. We're on the same page.
I only watch the movies. I
Mm-hmm.
will go watch the musical once it's back in Toronto. But for me, I think the ending, spoiler
Mm.
alert for anyone watching.
Yes, big spoiler. Big spoiler. 1 week out of the movie in theaters, there are
Exactly.
spoilers, guys.
Um, I will say that I was just disappointed like Glinda was alone at the end, and I understand
Mm.
why. Like I understand why she was left alone, and I think the importance of that and how she had to rise to the occasion to actually be good and actually do good for everyone at in Oz. So for me,
hmm
I was like, okay, yes, I understand why she couldn't know that Elphaba was alive still and all this stuff, but at the same time, I was like, okay, but basically she has no one. Like she has the
hmm
Tin Man who I'm like, I don't now, so he has no heart. So and that was he was so angry. He was
He was
so
so angry.
and I was just like, I don't remember him being this angry in The Wizard of Oz, which okay, also I didn't really love The Wizard of Oz.
Same. Same. I was so not, it was not my jam. It was not my jam.
Okay, and okay, thank you. So I did not like Wizard. I actually had nightmares of the Wizard of Oz, like the witch.
Yes, thank you.
Essentially, I just checked the chart because you sent some of the dates, but I checked the chart and it was because Chiron is in Libra for the
Hmm.
Wizard of Oz at 2 degrees. I'm a Libra
Hmm.
rising at 13 degrees. I was having nightmares with the 12th house. Like I was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense.
Does make so, oh my God. I never fully appreciate that, but that is so right. Honestly, I've always felt a little like, oh my God, like should I even reveal like because people really love the Wizard of Oz, you know, it's like classic, it is iconic, people have it is entrenched in culture, you know, and it's referenced so many times. So it's like, yeah, I know the references, I know what it's about, I know like historical significance of the movie and why it has such an enduring legacy. But yeah, I was definitely more indoctrinated into like musical theater land, like, you know, via Glee or whatever, right? And like you start listening to the music, and I mean, the songs from Wicked are just so, so incredible and so powerful. And I'm curious about your takes on the new songs in the second movie as well. But I think for me, if I had to refine it, I do think there was one song too many. I think as much as I really love Cynthia's voice, I think she's such a powerhouse. I think No Place Like Home, I think is one of the new songs. It was that and Girl in the Bubble. I just felt
Yeah.
that like it feels like Home's song. It just like added to the screen time. It didn't really add to the plot. And I don't know. I think I actually appreciated the complexity of the journey. I appreciate it. I'm a Scorpio rising Pluto person, you know. So I'm like, yeah, I like that this was her ending on her own. And on some level, there's this idea of duality, right? Like if you exist here, there's like this relativism going on, especially with all this like Uranus and Gemini in the air, you know, like how do I define myself? So if you've occupied a role and you are the truth teller and you are the one that is operating from like this integrity perspective, this outside perspective, what is now my role? And so the only way I can really step into that role as well and merge yourself in me without stepping on your toes, without stepping in your lane, is that one of us has to go. We can't both coexist at the same time, especially if someone doesn't have the strength to kind of step up to the plate, which is why I think it's a very fascinating. I wasn't necessarily a fan of Glinda, and I think I struggled with that a little bit. But then literally by the end of the movie, I felt like I had a completely different perspective on Glinda that was even surprising to me, which is I think why I enjoyed the movie. I like to be surprised by my ability to change my opinion by the end of the movie.
Oh, I love
Hmm.
that. And I
Hmm.
also really do agree with the No Place Like Home aspect. I know it's like more so a nod to the Wizard of Oz, which I kind of get. But
Hmm.
for me, again, Cynthia's beautiful voice, amazing. Um,
Hmm.
I just I just didn't love it. Like the Girl in
Hmm.
the Bubble though, Girl in the Bubble I
Oh,
loved so much
yes.
that
Yes.
I was like I didn't even like a part of me is like I didn't even know that this wasn't a part of the musical. Like I honestly didn't know.
Hmm.
Whereas No Place Like Home, I was just like, not feeling it, and I just don't
Hmm.
know like why exactly.
Hmm.
And also going back to your question of like, okay, what would I rewrite? Because I love revisions. If anyone knows,
Yes.
I have so
Shock.
many, I have so many,
Shocking Virgo stellium.
I have so many planets retrograde in my natal chart that I'm like, whoa. So I would rewrite it. I love Glinda at the end, and I felt like
Hmm.
the second movie was her movie, whereas
Hmm.
the first movie was more so Elphaba's movie. And the thing is, you can see her rise to the occasion, become better. You see the character development, you see all these things. I kind of would have liked that, Bach become more so kinder and gentler in terms of things. And then
Mm.
she ends up with Bach, who's the Tin Man. And I think that would have been so funny. And also, I mean, I think it would have been nice, but like more so like a subtle, like coming
Hmm.
together, more so like a subtle friendship, like
Mm.
not really like the intensity um, of like
Hmm.
Elphaba and this
Hmm.
the scarecrow, but I think it's just so interesting because I feel like it would have been like more so a subtle friendship of like, oh, there's at least someone to lean on, which I kind of like, but I understand
Mm.
why they had to like put her through it. I understand all those things, but I don't know.
Hmm.
That's kind of how I feel, but I love love. Like, I'm ruled by Venus. So, yeah.
We are talking during Venus hour on Venus day, on this first quarter Pisces moon. I think the Pisces rising chart, right, when we started talking. So, yeah, romance and love is in the air and the ideals in the air. The love bubble and the girl in the bubble is also in the air. All right, all right. I love this. I like how this is starting already. So, the plan for today's conversation is we are actually going to be looking at the Wicked release charts, but we're also going to be pulling up the Wizard of Oz chart, as Tati's already alluded to or referenced. And then we're going to talk about the cast, Ariana. We're going to talk about Cynthia naturally, why they make such good Glindas and Elphabas. We're also going to look at Jon M. Chu's chart as director, because this is such a big moment for him, of course, and Jonathan Bailey. And then we're going to kind of wrap up with some big picture questions, because, it's hard to not talk about this movie without talking about the timing or the arrival of this remake or this adaptation. And now with the sequel coming out, this really was a movie that I would say ushered in Pluto and Aquarius, like formally, because it did come out in 2024 November. And then now you kind of see where things are. And I think it's really, really well reflected in the reception to the movie, but also the movie itself. So, without further ado, okay. I figured, we'd start off at The Wizard of Oz because this is the original chart that effectively spawned everything, right? Like the book spawned the movie, spawned the adaptation, spawned the musical, spawned the movies now. So, looking at the Wizard of Oz chart, is there anything particularly like striking to you? It's day after Thanksgiving, and as always with my guests on the show, have at the turkey leg. I'm curious to see where you take us.
Yeah, I think for me, just looking at
Mm.
this chart, is
Hmm.
all this Sagittarius stellium that we kind of see also throughout the releases for Wicked in
Hmm.
terms of the movie. So we see all this beautiful growth energy in Sagittarius. And
Hmm.
what I really love about Sagittarius energy is there's a lot that comes with freedom in terms
Hmm.
of thinking of Sagittarius. There's a lot that comes from growth and expansion, but the aspect of what freedom means, but also the aspect of,
Hmm.
I kind of want to say protest too, when I think of
Hmm.
Pluto and Sagittarius, as well in that generation. So for me, I also think it's really curious to see Saturn in Sagittarius opposing Neptune in Gemini because
Hmm.
for me, I've seen the other charts, which we'll get into, but
Hmm.
there's an aspect where Chiron is opposing Saturn for
Hmm.
Cynthia's chart, and then also, I believe, another wicked chart. And when I see Neptune opposing Saturn, I'm like, oh, this is really, really interesting around the confusion around authority and the manipulation
Hmm.
of authority and how this is portrayed with the Wizard of Oz and the wonderful Wizard of Oz and the grandness of this.
I love that. I love that you're even bringing up like all these themes because these are very like Sagittarius like truth, right? There's the idea of like what truth is being communicated through such a happy medium, quote unquote, or like with all this like spectacular, this fanfare. There is this expansion of truth. And what's interesting is obviously why is this such an American movie and why is this such a classic is you think about the United States Sibley chart, and it is Sagittarius rising, if we believe that time, and it's also the Cancer stellium. So you have naturally the Cancer and the Sagittarius already baked into this movie. This is a movie about America. This is, and how you pull the representations from it, I think is just, yeah, there's a lot of depth, and you can definitely see that even through the astrology. I love that you pointed out about the nodes too. Because I believe they started doing the like auditions in the groundwork to filming through that 2020 to 2022 horizon, which was when the nodes were in Gemini and Sag. And then I think they formally started in December of 2022, which was Mars in Gemini, I think, at the time. It was like a Mars retrograde in Gemini. So you already see this chart coming alive in this iteration. What I have here actually is the first, like the Wizard of Oz movie that we all have come to love. Like I think more people might even know the movie than like the book itself, but you can already see like the evolution of this chart starting to unfold. Like you talked about Chiron already. What do you make of this Chiron Mars conjunction?
Yes, I love that question. I think for me, seeing this, I do feel like it's this energy of healing the aspect of what home is and the meaning of home
Mm-hmm.
and the
Mm-hmm.
ideas of that as well. And we see
Mm-hmm.
that as a huge theme for the Wizard of Oz of like, again, there's no place like home and
Mm-hmm.
trying to find home and missing home. So then with Mars and Chiron, this is like a trigger. This is a huge
Mm,
that's being brought up. And there's also this aspect of, okay, this is the wound we're trying to heal from, but how am I going to take care of myself throughout this journey and this process of finding the truth? What that I love that you brought
mm,
up the truth aspect because again, looking at the nodes as well, I really do feel like the Wizard of Oz movie at least was
mm-hmm.
this understanding of okay, what is real?
Mm-hmm.
What is being hidden from the surface and how do we unveil what is actually happening behind the scenes? And
Mm-hmm.
I think I love that you brought up that it really represents America and it's this understanding too of um, the cancer aspect of America. The
Mm-hmm.
home is really, really reflected in the movie. So I think for me,
Mm-hmm.
the Chiron and Mars conjunction is this idea of rethinking what home means and how to take care of yourself throughout the process of finding home, looking for home, and
Mm-hmm.
again, old triggers of like, okay, how can I take care of myself?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really love that. Also because we had quite a bit of Mars Chiron in the sky as of late as well. And so you definitely have felt that energy very loud and very present. And this year we also had, of course, the Mars Cancer retrograde early this year. And so again, it's interesting, this movie, Wicked, the releases kind of are bookending the Mars retrograde. It's almost like the movie's too on the nose, trying to communicate what's happening right now. I think it was also interesting with this movie. We don't have the time of the movie release. These are both noon charts, but we know that the movie was released with the Gemini moon because it's right there smack in the middle. And in theory, it would be within orb to the original or the natal Pluto. So you see this idea again of, let's like, this is another chapter of healing and transformation. Like we are going to communicate it in a different medium for you to like get the point across. Um, and it's interesting that this is also coming in 1939, which, we were just coming out of like the Great Depression. We were kind of in very similar type of turmoil, if you will. And then, right before World War II. I also was curious about oh my God, I saved like all these charts, but classic, I saved these during like Mercury retrograde. So I'm just like, what has happened here? We did get the Wicked book later on in 1995, which I think I might have that chart as well. But I think the Broadway chart might be more interesting just because it started getting more popular. Or at least this is now entering a different level of mainstream consciousness. How have you seen the charts evolving now? Like there's still aspects. We still see that Mars, getting activated. Now it's moved into Saturn activation. Now, what do you make of that with Mars, from Mars Chiron to Mars Saturn?
Yeah, I think for me, just seeing that is the aspect of building a new home now with Wicked, of like the
Hmm.
idea of, okay, there's a clash of what the authority is at home, but then
Hmm.
also, okay, how am I building something stable and grounded for my home with that Mars conjunction? There's some tension there. There's some aspect
Mm.
of is there a foundation that needs to crumble? Is there a foundation that needs to change for things to take place? I love Chiron, but like going back to
We love Chiron.
the Chiron Pluto conjunction too, I'm like, oh my
Wow.
gosh, like it's just there's so
Hmm.
many conjunctions to Chiron throughout
Hmm.
these charts where I'm like, yes, we're healing truth throughout this, and this is a new type of truth that's transforming.
Hmm.
And this is a completely different perspective. I'm curious what you think of both of these.
The Broadway musical really was that vessel that was going to give this story, not to say the story in of itself didn't have staying power, but as you talked about the Mars and Saturn, like how do we maybe fortify the foundations, right? About what we're talking about here. And how do we maybe even bring the nostalgia, because this is something old, into the new and like really almost like time capsule it, right? Saturn and Mars together, like we're not gonna go crazy with it, but we're trying to preserve the integrity of the old. So there is a lot of, um, admittedly, yeah, there is a lot about references and nostalgia. And even in the movie, it's like, oh, we have to pay homage, and there is this lineage. It is very lineage oriented, which I think is also why I felt compelled to like go to the origin and then see how it's evolved to get this iteration that we get now. And yeah, the Pluto Chiron, I mean, what a powerful, like when you think about defying gravity, right? Like to me, that is Pluto Chiron. In SAG, I am literally defying everything I know and I am flying without limits because this is Sagittarius. The fact that the OG had all of this SAG, this movie really is about reclaiming that sense of like optimism and truth. And actually, I do have a question for you, which you're welcome to save for the end and noodle on as we keep talking. A big question that I had was, what is the role of the public figure? Is it to tell the truth or is it to inspire? Because it feels very Sagittarius either way. Glinda to inspire feels very Jupiterian, and Elphaba, I'm here to tell the truth, which is also another side of Jupiter. What side of Jupiter wins out? And I think it's very interesting with the South Node in Gemini again, two becoming one, two different ideas becoming one convicted belief. And I think you do see that represented with Glinda standing alone at the end. This is why she kind of has to stand alone at the end.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love that question so much. Yes, I'm gonna save
Yes,
that.
like noodle it. I did also want to pull up Idina Menzel's chart because when you think about, and this is almost like a soft layup for when we talk about Ariana, she was born to play this role. I don't believe this musical would have hit the level of heights it did without her and Kristen Chenoweth. That Taurus stellium on the North Node. Are you kidding me?
I love that. I love that so much. And the 0 degree Jupiter, like in Sagittarius, that's wow.
Oh my God, I didn't even notice that. That Jupiter-Neptune conjunction in SAG on, oh my God, wait, the Juno and the Vesta. There was a soul contract here. Whenever I feel like there's like the Juno implications, right? Because it's like more than just relationships. It really is like soul contract and what we're here to do. I feel like if you are a creative, and you're thinking like, oh, is this role meant for me? Or like, was I born to play this? You can see here, this was a role she was absolutely born to play.
Yes. Yes. I love this so much. I love just this aspect and the fact that she's a Gemini sun too. I just feel as though this, if you go back to the Wizard of Oz chart, there was all this
Hmm.
Gemini and Sagittarius energy. So her having that aspect of like, oh,
On the
conjunct
South
the South
Node.
Node. I love that. I love that. It's just, there's just so much there where you're like, okay, there is this karmic contract for sure. And she definitely understands where it's coming from. I know Wicked is a completely different adaptation, but
Hmm.
being inspired by the Wizard of Oz,
Hmm.
it really speaks to communication and the aspect of truth with that Gemini sun. And then having her Jupiter in Sagittarius, I really feel like it was guiding her to
Hmm.
balance this out of like having this big persona to showcase the importance of this communication. And
Hmm.
I love, of course, musicals. A
Hmm.
Gemini sun just screams like put it out there as a musical, and that's when people are going to understand this hidden truth.
Yes. It's very interesting, right? Because she does have Mars conjunct the North Node in Aquarius, and she does play Elphaba in the musical. And you can kind of think of this as very Elphaba, Like, right? Mars on the North Node. Like, I am the rebel, I am the contrarian, but I'm here to also speak the truth. Like, Aquarius is also very big on finding the truth. That's why there's a whole lot about conspiracy theories and Aquarius, because there is just this underlying need to like investigate and understand and uncover what's really happening here so that I can intellectualize it, process it, and know what to do with that information. But I just love this as a revolutionary type of energy that she already carries in the chart that follows through to the character.
Yes, I completely agree. I love that. And just that the sun is trine her Mars, beautiful. Feels very natural for her to work with a lot of people. She can collaborate in a very great way in terms of this. She can communicate in a way that feels, I want to say, like, as you said, investigative, but
Hmm.
also just out of the box, different and unique. So the fact that she's Elphaba, I'm like, that makes sense.
Okay, so I pulled up the chart for Wicked Part 1 because we're going to pull up the second Wicked for Good chart as well, just to see if there are any differences or similarities. But this was part 1. When I layer it in on top of the Wizard of Oz, what is this movie now showing about this evolution from the Wizard of Oz? There's still some notable synastry points here.
Yes, yes. And I think for myself, when I see this, the nod to the Wizard of Oz is like that Sagittarius energy with the sun at 0 degrees of Sagittarius. So
Mhm.
they have picked a better release date. I'm just like, wow,
Yeah,
of
they
course.
crushed it.
They
Do you think they had an astrologer on
I
cast?
I think they did. I think I'm like, wow, I love it. And again, I'm always drawn to Chiron, and there's also Mercury conjunct Chiron here, which makes
Mm.
so much sense with how this was portrayed because it's like, okay, no, we're going to communicate the truth because we're seeing a different perspective. And even though the nodes are different, the fire air energy of the North and South node for both really gives this energy of trying to communicate passion and also trying to uncover information and take action towards something that feels more creative.
I like that, especially because that Mercury also does trine the natal Mercury in Leo, right? So there is a lot of fire, there's a lot about creativity. This movie really was a spectacle. And even when you think about the production, from my understanding, this was a production through and through, and an ambitious production with a lot of moving parts.
Yes, I completely agree. Like I think it was like in the works for years. There was just so much that went into this. I'm so curious as to like when John was introduced to knowing that he got this movie or
Officially tapped. Let me like look it up as you're talking. Definitely
yeah.
post Crazy Rich Asians, which came out in 2018. Oh, Feb 2021.
Oh, okay.
Was that already, that was already Scorpio and Taurus eclipses.
I think so. The Aquarius aspect, that's very interesting.
I can't tell if it was like a Pisces Feb, which would also make
Right.
sense with this movie, or earlier in Feb, but it was right after the Jupiter Saturn Aquarius conjunction in December, a couple of months after that great conjunction.
Oh my
So
gosh.
that would have been right on the series of The Wizard of Oz.
Wow. Wow.
Ooh.
I love
That's
that.
cool.
That is cool. Just finding that out. I'm like, oh my goodness.
So when you really think about like the great rebirth, the idea of bringing an old idea to the future or bringing it to life, like in a weird way, 2020 was such a potent time of reset, right? And maybe before it just felt like, oh, there were so many excuses, right? Like, oh, it's too big, it's too ambitious, it's too complicated. How we're going to do it's so Pluto and Cap coded. How are you going to make money on this? And like, how can we get a return, right? And is this worth the investment? But then, you got the Jupiter Saturn great conjunction. It was like, wait a minute. We're going to do something different. And I find it really fascinating that the movie then came out amidst the Jupiter Saturn squares. And when you think about the element of what I said earlier, truth, or like blind optimism and truth, or reality checks and truth, right? Like that also feels very Jupiter, Saturn. Like they both want to accomplish the same thing, but they're trying to do it in very different ways, but you can't do one without the other.
Yes. Oh, I love that perspective. I completely agree. And I think that's why we keep getting drawn to Jupiter and Saturn when looking at these charts too. There's like Saturn, again, authority, and this movie, both The Wizard of Oz and Wicked, like it has so many takes on authority and what authority is and how corrupt authority can be. So I do feel like there's that aspect of Saturn, and then with Jupiter
Hmm.
there, it's the aspect of growth in community, but also with it in it being in Aquarius, but then also the growth of authority. Because I'm seeing that more so as like Glinda at the end of like, okay, I have to be a good leader. I have to stand up and step it up. So I do see that aspect at the end of Wicked 2 as Glinda now in a place of being a better authority figure.
I've now pulled up the Wicked for Good chart just to like compare and contrast. Do you see that in the chart, how Glinda has arrived at her newfound authority?
Oh, I see it as like Saturn conjunct the North Node here. I'm like
Mm,
that that screams like, okay, how do I take responsibility for that growth? And being in Pisces, ruled by Jupiter, there's again that connection to Saturn and Jupiter, which
hmm
I love. And then Jupiter being in Cancer
mm,
for this year, that aspect of home and what that means, I think that in itself is beautiful. But I think for the first
hmm
release, it was Jupiter in Gemini.
Both Jupiter retrogrades.
Very interesting.
I love that point you made, though, about the Saturn and the North Node conjunction because both movies have different nodes. So, what would you maybe describe as the difference between the South Node being in Libra versus the South Node in Virgo? Do you even see that in the difference in the movies?
Oh, I love that question.
Hmm.
I think seeing the South Node in Libra for the first movie and then changing it to the South Node in Virgo, I'm seeing the difference in the movies of the first one being, okay, letting go of relationships, partnerships, but then also the idea of good. And Libra being, sometimes people pleasing, wanting to, of course, do good. And it's being exalted in Saturn,
Hmm.
which can often feel like, okay, how can I see a different perspective? How can I let go and be there? But letting go of any type of relationships or ideas of needing to look a certain way or needing to appear a certain way. Whereas the
Mm,
South Node in Virgo, I see that as like letting go of perfectionism, letting go of refinement or getting stuck in not feeling good enough to kind of let that aspect go and move towards this North Node in Pisces is spiritual partnerships to me, like spiritual
mm.
partnerships, expansion of dreams of what can be better. And in the end, yes, Galinda's like alone, and I think I still, I'm disappointed by that. My Cancer Moon, my
Oh,
Libra
you
rising,
can't summer. Yes, yes, yes.
I can't, I get disappointed, but at the same time, when you really think about it, I think Galinda still got so much of what she wanted because in the end
Hmm.
she loves inspiring. She loves being there for people and like
Hmm.
being that authority figure or public figure, as you said. So I still think she got what she wanted, but it's not exactly what she expected. And I think the
Hmm.
South Node in Virgo is letting go of expectations that can
Hmm.
like drain you and also letting go that it
Hmm.
has to be a certain way. Whereas the North Node in Pisces is more love and compassion and really seeing
Hmm.
the bigger perspective on it.
I think that's really beautiful. Interestingly enough, at the end of the first movie, there was a lot about fight. What do we do now, right? And like there's an immediate sense of urgency. And then the second movie, there's a lot more about acceptance. Like the idea of like Elphaba kind of coming to terms with like, in order for me to feel truly free, this is not the world that I can exist in. And so I have to surrender to the idea of what a whole new world could look like outside of this form.
Oh, I love that perspective. I think that's such a good point around the second movie having so much more acceptance and more like
Mm,
surrender, which I really see as like the North Node in Pisces for sure.
hmm
the first movie, the aspect you mentioned about fighting with the North Node
Hmm.
and Aries, I really see that too as okay, there's just so much passion and individuality of like, okay, how do I kind of stand up for what I believe in? What does this
Hmm.
look like? Who am I when it comes to this? Going into the second movie, I think the aspect of just having the North Node in Pisces, yeah, I do agree. And I think because Pisces is ruled by Neptune as well as
Hmm.
Jupiter, there's this aspect of you're not going to see the full picture. Like you're not going to
Hmm.
see the full story. And when it relates to the villagers, everyone who's looking up to Glinda, everyone in the city of Oz, you're not going to see the whole perspective because of that
Hmm.
hazy Neptune energy.
Hmm.
And you're right, like maybe it's accepting that you can only have a bit of the truth. You can't, not everyone can know the full truth. And even at the end, when you mentioned this aspect, like Glinda doesn't know that Elphaba's still alive, so she can't know. It's not gonna be good for anyone. So there's this
Hmm.
aspect of like, okay, well, maybe too much truth can be more
Hmm.
harmful than
Hmm.
good. And that in itself can be kind of hard to accept too. So there's
Hmm.
a lot of more acceptance to that in the second movie of, okay, wait, maybe I
Hmm.
can't tell her. Maybe people aren't supposed to know every single thing. Maybe it would be very anxiety inducing with that
Hmm.
South Node in Virgo. And we have to kind of go through to frame things in a more optimistic perspective with the
Hmm.
North Node in Pisces.
Yeah, I mean, I can't help but think, obviously, of like the current state, even right, like of American politics. Like, I can't comment on Canadian politics, but when you think about the idea of like the extremism and spectrum of the political parties and beliefs, and obviously with Gaza and literally genocide everywhere, and just the way that everything is like kind of like seemingly falling apart for some stratifications of society, right? Like, you kind of get this idea of, okay, well, there are a lot of progressives on either side, but really at the end of the day, it's like how you come to the middle ground to like honor all sides. And I think what's also really fascinating about the Wicked movies charts on top of each other is just the fact that in Wicked for Good, there is this Mars and Moon conjunction in Sagittarius, right? It's like really trying to crystallize and separate, but then also it opposes the Wicked Part One's Jupiter retrograde in Gemini. So again, we have this Gemini Sagittarius, where are we just talking out of our asses and where are we really communicating truth? And so, does it matter if that means or Elphaba's reputation takes a hit? Does it matter like that Glinda is still having to be upheld as the source of inspiration? We don't talk about the real badness, but we know that they've been taken care of. So, does the end justify the means? Do people have to be made aware of the whole process to get to this point of peace? It's also very South Node in Virgo, right? Like you don't have to be informed of every step of the way, but you all kind of have to want the same vision.
I love that perspective. And just what you pointed out with the Mars moon opposing Jupiter and Gemini, I'm like, yes, that makes so much sense, even with the ending of the movie of like
Mm.
them having to run away from the home that she was singing about.
Hmm.
That aspect, her and Scarecrow.
Fiyero.
Fiyero, yes, yeah. And I always just call him the Scarecrow at the
Right,
after he transformed.
right.
But it's just
Which my
which
friend, my friend, by the way, in the theater yesterday when we saw the transformation, she leaned over and was like, "Doesn't he look like Deadpool Ryan Reynolds?" I'm like, "He totally does. Like Scarecrow, Fiyero looks like Deadpool Ryan Reynolds. You cannot convince me otherwise."
I see it. I see it. That's so funny. That's so funny. Yes, I see it. Oh my God, I love that aspect that you pointed out because I'm like, yeah, you kind of have to run away. You kind of have to like let go of what you're seeking from the Jupiter in Gemini of like those two truths that
Hmm.
can be true, but there's like you have to kind of break free from it and just like let it go.
You can't just sit on the side. You still have to take action, right?
Yes.
Like at the end of the day, it was Glinda who finally decided, I want to step into good for good. But obviously, it's a little complicated. And I'm excited to like layer in Ariana Grande's chart because I think this was the reason why this feels like the role of a lifetime for her is because she is playing herself, admittedly, in this. Last thing I'll say before I move over, though, is you can even see the tone of the movie shift because the Wicked Part 1, Sun in Sag, Mercury in Sag. Wicked Part 2, Scorpio Sun, Mercury retrograde in Scorpio, Scorpionic undertones versus Sagittarius optimism.
I love that.
But let us see. Okay, so Grande. Here we have Ariana, Cancer Sun, our dear Cancer Queen, Cap Rising, and a Libra Moon. Pretty chart. So I already said just now that I feel like Glinda is the role she was really born to play. And I think that you really do see her evolve as an actress through the movie. Like she's incredible. She is so talented. What aspects of her chart do you see reflected in Glinda or vice versa? Why is she the perfect person to play Glinda?
I honestly love Ariana's chart because I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much here. Like, first off, even the Jupiter in Libra, the growth in partnerships in her
Hmm
career make her such the perfect role for this movie of having that connection to Cynthia and then also growing in her career based on this. But it's
hmm
also the Jupiter moon conjunction too. So she's like emotionally tied to this growth. Like she's willing to put in the work. And we see this as her being a Cap rising ruled by
hmm
Saturn in Pisces. Just seeing that aspect too, where she's been prepping for this role. She's been manifesting this role for
hmm
years. You can see all the videos where she's like, so dedicated to getting this role no matter what. A Cap Rising, I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense a Cap Rising would be able to work towards it. And the fact that she also can refine so well with her Mars and Virgo.
Mm,
There's that aspect. And then she has the beautiful Venus in Taurus in the fifth house, which is so lovely.
yeah.
So there's just so many things here where I
hmm
feel like you can kind of see, okay, she was built for this because she wanted it. Like she
hmm
really was in a place of how can I just do this role? And I
hmm
think there was an interview where I kind of looked into it a little bit, but she was saying like Glinda's always going to be a part of her now, which is so
hmm
true. And
hmm
then again, like she herself can really showcase what she wanted to convey around those different sides of Glinda, which we can
hmm
see so well in the Wicked movie.
hmm Everything you said, yes, this chart was hardwired for I'm going to be a phenomenal talent. Here's the thing, she would have been a very good doing a lot of other things too, but with this much creativity in the chart, and especially you've got Uranus, Neptune, that conjunction on her ascendant, you've got Jupiter on her moon, Venus in Taurus, Venus rules Taurus. You've like even just the idea of Cancer, like there's just such a dreaminess, right? Like there's this Swiss Army knife in you. You can Water takes form of whatever container it flows in. So she, as Ethan Slater said, is not a singer trying to be an actress. She just is a great actress and she just is a great singer. She's not trying to be something she's not. And I mean, when she appropriates other stuff, different story. But that's also very Neptune Uranus. But what I think is very interesting is we have spent most of this conversation talking about the Gemini and Sagittarius nodes and the fact that it is in her chart. Boom. And the fact that it's also in her sixth house, 12th house. When I tell you the number of people who like come to me for a reading and they have the south node in the sixth, the north node in the 12th, I'm like, what's your dream job? What do you really want to do? Like, don't tell me about your boring job. What do you really want to do? And when they tell me, I'm like, you have to go do it. Like, the chart is inviting you to go do it. The chart is inviting you to say no. And for her, I'm so glad that she was supported early on to do these things because I can imagine like chronic illness hitting her if she were to do something that she didn't like. But with Ariana Grande, of course, the body conversation and the weight conversation is also very interesting. It's very South Node in Virgo because that was also a big part of the press circuit this time. You can kind of see that with the Mars and Virgo in the chart, right? Like whether it's her being hard on herself or her receiving the criticism outside. Mars and Virgo is beautiful, but also difficult sometimes. But she does have a night chart, so that in theory should be more empowering for her.
Yes. And I love that you pointed out the North and South node. I think,
Hmm
as you said too, like the North node in Sagittarius in the 12th house, like ultimate dream job. And then it being ruled by Jupiter in Libra, going back to her Jupiter in Libra, I'm like, of course she's
hmm
like just having this duality with Cynthia and being
hmm
able to be Glinda to her Elphaba, I'm like, yes, this makes so much sense. And then her skill set, like her natural gift from a past life, is her voice, is her
hmm
communication. And that
hmm
being in Mercury in Cancer, which I find is super, super interesting in her
hmm
relationship sector, she
hmm
has a lot of learning around relationships this lifetime.
Oh,
So,
yes.
yes,
Oh,
for sure.
yes. Oh, yes. I mean, you would think a Jupiter and Libra moon, it's super empowered, right? For relationships built and moon ruling the seventh house, especially. But, she has had a lot about her love life in the media. She obviously had Mac Miller, which is a great love of hers, who committed suicide. You can kind of even see the Mercury in Cancer here ruling the sixth house. Like, her people who she's dated maybe like having health problems or something as well, right? Pete Davidson, are they also mirroring stuff about her that she's not allowing herself to feel? Because as much as she is a Cancer, her Cancer's, I'm looking at a whole sign in Placidus, who's a sixth house Cancer, but this is still like on the other part of the chart. You know what I mean? It's not like the self part of the chart, it's the other part of the chart. And so for her, she can get very easily emotionally attached to maybe who she works with.
Yes.
Hard to draw boundaries sometimes.
Oh my gosh, 100%. Whenever a client comes to me for a reading, I always warn
Mm-hmm.
them with the like a sun in the seventh house. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna mirror the next like the person you're with, and you're
Mm-hmm.
gonna really be codependent with that person if you're not setting boundaries, if you're not in a place of knowing what feels good to you. And then I
Mm-hmm.
do think it makes it a bit harder that her sun is in a square to her moon and Jupiter because sometimes
Mm-hmm.
she embodies isn't exactly how she feels. She might need more than she even initially realizes when it comes to relationships. And she's kind of learning that. And there was that controversy of her dating SpongeBob, who was Bob
Mm-hmm.
in the movie, and he had a wife, he left her, Anna. So then there was this aspect of okay, I do see her getting very emotionally attached to people she works with. So there is that
Mm-hmm.
aspect. She was still in her Saturn return. Yes, the degree is like not there, but at the same time, Saturn is still in Pisces right now. So this entire movie were released during her Saturn return, which is huge.
Yeah, I mean, even just thinking, right, like the build up to the movie, like Saturn was in Aquarius. LOL, my cat is like so hyped for this conversation,
I
clearly.
love it.
It is interesting to think like Saturn in Aquarius 2020 to 2023, around the time this movie really got going, was her in her second house and her proving self to self, and like can she hack it? And going through the audition process and all these things, right? And so now for this movie to be her Saturn return product, especially Saturn in Pisces, an artistic crystallization of the lessons that you've had to learn these last 2.5 years. What did you really learn about how you take care of your health? Workaholism, also pushing yourself to perfectionism, refining your craft, right? Like these are all very important things, but also third house, it's your filter. How do you identify yourself as a creative? Are you more than just a singer now, right? Like you're blooming into something. And the idea of Jupiter in Cancer this year also expanding in her seventh house, the perception, the public's perception, we can maybe hold more space, LOL, for the different versions of who she is.
I love that. I think that's a beautiful way to kind of just explore her chart and
Hmm
this huge milestone she's having in her career.
Absolutely. And so now, I will layer Cynthia's chart. So this is what I actually found very fascinating. So we don't have Cynthia's time, so I've just pulled it as a new chart, Jan 8th, 1987. The Lilith and Sun synastry was very striking to me, given their relationship. LOL, if you haven't heard the rumors right now, they're in like a what did I send you? Like a demi-curious, semi-curious, something sapphic-ish relationship, Taylor Swift, Carly Claus coded. Like I don't even know. But I'm like, but there's something definitely there with the Lilith on the sun. And I haven't like I can't put quite my finger on it.
Yeah, yeah, there's something there where there's like this attachment, especially with Cancer. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this is deep. This is deep.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also what I noticed was like just the aspect of like Ariana being a Capricorn rising, Cynthia's sun falling
Mm-hmm.
into her first house,
Mm-hmm.
and the sun conjunct her ascendant. I'm like, okay, I love that. Like, but the sun is just few degrees away from the ascendant. So technically it would be in her
Mm-hmm.
12th house as well. So then there's this past life connection there.
Mm-hmm.
I do see her and Cynthia knowing each other, having this deep knowing and understanding, which they've communicated, I think, in a few interviews of like they really trust each other with, musical iterations of how they kind of were testing out different ways of singing the songs. So I really see that aspect of, okay, they have this really, really strong connection. And yeah, I think just the beautiful Cancer Capricorn aspect itself, I do
Mm-hmm.
think about it, yes, it's still kind of like home in Saturn, even though like Capricorn, it's the sun in Capricorn for Cynthia, but I really do see it as that opposition of home, family, but then
Mm-hmm.
career and public image, and then that connection that they both have, understanding the balance between them. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
okay, what feels like home? What feels like this emotional connection, but then also
Mm.
respect. Like the Capricorn, I really see it as like they really, really expect each other. They also are growing together in a really amazing way. That's what I'm kind of seeing from their synastry.
The fact that it's the sister sign synastry and that they are playing such sisterly relationships is interesting. And they both also show the different they show their signs well, right? They show even just the archetypes of those well, right? Because Saturn is more no nonsense and tough and like this is the cold hard facts. And Cancer, again, is more like, well, how are we trying to protect people, really? We can't give them too much. We're trying to coddle people. So there is this relationship. I mean, admittedly, the more I'm looking at the chart, yes, I think Cynthia really inspires Ariana. I think almost Cynthia legitimizes Ariana, because Capricorn is Earth, and so you can materialize someone's aspirations. And so there is it's almost like they have an aligned ambition for
Yeah.
both of them. Now, what I do find interesting, however, is I pointed out that Lilith Cancer Sun synastry, which you've highlighted potentially as like codependency, but then there's another Lilith activation here. Mars conjunct Ariana's Lilith in Pisces. And it just feels interesting to have such a close female relationship and then have all this Lilith as well. And it kind of does make sense why there is like more of this type of speculation. But also, again, like I can't help but think Saturn on the North Node, right? Cynthia Saturn on Ariana's North Node, like I do wonder if maybe like in a past life, like Cynthia was the bigger force, and then now it's like the idea of Ariana is bringing Cynthia in to stuff, right? Because like I think about the Met Gala performance, in tw ahead of the Wicked release, the first one, and I think Cynthia's like Ariana invited me to perform at the Met Gala. I'd read some blinds about how Cynthia was maybe not necessarily getting movie roles after Wicked. You would think being in such a big blockbuster, you would start getting roles offered, but it hasn't been the case apparently. It's different for Ariana, of course, who's got like Meet the Fockers 4 coming out. She's also I think got other things coming up that I haven't. Oh, she's going to be in American Horror Story, right? But like everything that I've heard from Cynthia has been like, oh, she's going to be in Dracula in the West End. It's not major movie production stuff, even though she technically, I think, wants it. So it's an interesting dynamic here. I'll just say that.
Oh, I love that. And you pointed out the Saturn conjunct her North Node, and
Hmm.
I go back to Chiron conjunct the South Node there. I just feel like
Yeah.
from letting go of insecurities with this relationship and friendship and label they want to give it, I do feel as though
Mm-hmm.
there's something where they see each other very, very well.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some insecurities about not the voice, because I do feel like for Cynthia to have the Chiron Saturn opposition, which I natally have an opposition from Chiron to Saturn, and that can cause like issues with authority, which is very interesting to for her to have this
Mm-hmm.
role as Elphaba, which I'm like perfect, honestly, made for her. But then the South Node conjunct Chiron, I'm just seeing it as like perhaps Ariana just helping Cynthia in the sense of
Mm-hmm.
letting go of insecurities that we
Mm-hmm.
aren't fully seeing, because we kind of see this more so as like Cynthia being there for Ariana, because I know Ariana um, has PTSD, so she
Mm-hmm.
more physical touch. She needs more support. And
Mm-hmm.
Cynthia being there for her. So we see that aspect of their relationship. But I
Mm-hmm.
also feel like there's not there's something we're not seeing with
Mm-hmm.
how Ariana is there for Cynthia in
Mm-hmm.
terms of things too. So, and I think it's because of that
Mm-hmm.
Saturn conjunct the North Node in Ariana's 12th. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that's super, super interesting to point out. But I think what you brought up about Cynthia not getting the roles, I think that is very surprising and very
Mm-hmm.
strange. So I do love that Ariana is trying to invite her and like bring her in
Mm-hmm.
and like give her more of this chance to be even more seen in an
Mm-hmm.
aspect, which I love.
Which is kind of crazy to think, right? Because this movie would not be possible without Cynthia and Arya. Like they both play such an important role. It's not either one of their movies. And I think it's also important they both like that ego got checked, right? Around like this is not you are both the co-leads of this movie. It is not just one person carrying, even though realistically, again, Wicked first movie felt more like the Elphaba hero story, and then the second felt like Glinda coming in to wrap it up. We do also know inherently Ariana is quite insecure with that Chiron in the eighth house, but no one's gonna ever see it, right? Like everyone sees her cap rising, but they don't see the Chiron in Leo that wants that attention and wants that adoration. So I think it's interesting that Bach or SpongeBob is the one that's like coming to her defense, in the public. It's her intimate relationship coming to her defense, but we don't even know if they're like still together based on the rumors because it has been Mercury retrograde, so it has been going through Sag and Scorpio. So there's a lot about what's really happening behind closed doors and also what's happening in like her crew, right? And like where is she trying to head next for Ariana? So is there anything else you wanted to say about their synastry before I bring up I'm going to bring up Jonathan Bailey before I do John Chu because I don't necessarily think we're going to spend too long on Jonathan Bailey, but I just felt like, Fiyero kind of had a big moment this second movie. So
Yeah, I just want to say, like, with Cynthia as well, I do feel like just the aspect of her not getting the like maybe as many opportunities as Ariana, I think it's just blatant racism to be
totally.
like I honestly do feel like
Mm-hmm.
so strange to me because I'm like she's such a powerhouse. She's so good
Mm-hmm.
in her role. So I do feel like it could be the racism, and I do feel like celebrities charts they really reflect on
Mm-hmm.
what's happening in the world, and we kind of see
Yes.
this again with Gaza, with what's happening in the States with ICE. There's just so much. So I do feel like this is um it's so
Continuing.
yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
just continuing in a different realm. And
Mm-hmm.
that in itself is heartbreaking. But of course, like everything in total is heartbreaking when you kind of consider that and see that.
Yeah, I think it's also, you bring up such a beautiful point because, I mean, a horrific, like a tragically beautiful point, right? Because the idea of Elphaba being a minority woman cast in a movie at this time about speaking the truth against a system or a home that doesn't claim you as their own is profound. I think what Cynthia is also doing for Ariana, right, is in some sense awakening her to her own blind spots around that Jupiter and Libra moon, like, oh, everything is fine, like, I'm sure it'll be fine, or I'm sure they didn't mean that, or I'm sure this, whatever, right? And it's like, this is the reality of my life. And if we are friends, how do you accept this? And how do you help fight this? So there are those themes as well that comes up. And again, even just the idea of like Ariana and the Jupiterian question I had for you, like what does Jupiter really mean in this case? And you see Cynthia's Jupiter in Pisces squaring Ariana's nodes as
Mm.
well. And my friend Camille, and I don't know, Camille Michelle Gray, brilliant astrologer. She does a lot of research on Neptune and the Black Condition, but just the idea of Jupiter and Pisces representing Cynthia as maybe this figure, also helping Ariana make a more decisive push, maybe be more outspoken. She does talk about Gaza. She does, so Ariana has even been more vocal, especially post Manchester. She's kind of like found that strength again to go on tour even. So it's really, really interesting. So I'm really glad you brought that up for Cynthia. Here we have Jonathan Bailey's chart. People's Magazine's Sexiest Man Alive this year. He's also responsible for being part two of the biggest blockbusters of the year, Jurassic World earlier this summer, as well as, of course, Wicked for Good. Are we surprised by the chart, or are we like, oh, yes, that is Fiyero?
I I love it. It makes sense for Fiyero. Again, I go back to the Venus conjunct Chiron in Gemini is so interesting for Fiyero and like dating both Glinda and Elphaba, having
Yes.
right? Like it's just like so in your face. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. That's why he's re like he
Torn.
and then also he did a good job when that transition happened where he left Glinda and
Mm.
went to Alphaba. It was shocking. So he did a good job like hiding a certain feelings. And like I think
Mhm.
Glinda could tell he was hiding certain things, but I really
Mhm.
see that as like the Venus conjunct Chiron in Gemini.
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, I love that you like zoned in on that conjunction because I'm just even then looking at aspects to it, right? Like you've got the trine to Mars in Aquarius, and then you've got the Leo moon sextile. I mean, we don't know his time, but like he most likely feels like a Leo moon to me because he's got that superstar quality. That sextiling that Venus and Chiron conjunction. So you can kind of almost see like in the manner of who wins out in terms of ease or like what you want to go for, the trine won out, right? Over the sextile. Because sextile still takes effort. Trine is effortless. So like for him to feel effortless in that connection with Mars and Aquarius, which is so Alphaba coded, and then with the Leo moon, which is so Glinda coded. Like
Oh, I love that.
I can't even. And you know what? Because you and I know both know this, but the fact that the chart will show you multiple different aspects to articulate the same storyline and theme, so you know you're on the right track. You can even think about the Jupiter, Sun, and Mercury as like I can't make a decision because my like what do I really stand for, right? Like what's my how do I feel confident? What feels good in my gut? Do I go with the sun, like the status? Mercury, curious, trickster, the true witch, the magician, right? So there's that element as well. With Juno there, like for him, this is, I need to find my life partner, but like, I'm not gonna, like, and I'm okay with settling, but at the same time, like, at some point, there's just gonna be a big breakthrough moment because I have unconventional Mars opposing the moon.
Yes, yes. And I think I love that you pointed that out. And I see with all of their charts, there's a very prominent Jupiter placement, which is so interesting, which makes sense for Wicked because all the Jupiter energy in Wicked, that grandness of Oz, the grandness of the Wicked movies. So I think that in itself is so, so interesting. And then even his nodes being the North Node in Pisces, the South Node in Virgo.
Hmm.
So he's going through his nodal return. And I'm
Hmm.
like, well, of course he's going through his nodal return because this is a huge moment for him.
Absolutely. And Saturn especially also, it's like he has solidified himself as a movie star. But what is really interesting is he's actually going to take a break from movies after this, I think, to focus on his charity work. So, or his philanthropy. So that is also really profound and I think beautiful. It's like, okay, I get my success, I get the platform I need, and now what am I going to do with it? This last inning of Uranus and Taurus, right? Like I've gotten what I wanted, and now I get to like really focus on what it is I want to do for humanity, which again is so Mars, Aquarius, and Pluto moving in Aquarius. Like, I can't imagine him eventually like taking a step away and kind of maybe being more like, SAG president or something like that, right? Like something that is more community oriented, but he'll always be a superstar. Jupiter opposing Pluto, like that Pluto opposing all that Taurus. This is megawatt energy.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yeah, so strong. I love seeing it. I'm like, okay, perfect Fiyero.
When you think about could they have gotten a more perfect director? I sent you this thing about how, with Jon M, like if he never makes it again as a director, like he could have a career as like a wedding planner because both Crazy Rich Asians and Wicked had such elaborate wedding scenes. You're like, okay, Jon M. wedding. Does his chart give you wedding planner? Where do we see all of this?
That's so funny. When you sent me that, I'm like, yes, his weddings were on point. I don't know.
So good.
They were gorgeous. I'm like, wow. And I see it maybe his Mars and Leo really stands
Hmm.
out in this aspect of, okay, like let me create, let me
Hmm.
share. And it's funny because he's going through his nodal opposition right now,
Hmm.
which is also very interesting of like alignment and life path. So I do feel like this was written in his destiny. 'Cause the nodes really do represent fate. So the fact that bringing up the nodes, I'm like, yeah, it's so interesting to witness now. Just and I
Hmm.
love the fact that he decided to. I think there was a conversation where they decided to make it into two movies because there was just so much to include, and I think that was actually a really good
That's
design.
smart.
Yeah.
Very necessary. I mean, you've been pointing out Chiron a lot, obviously, and Chiron and Pluto activations throughout the course of our Wicked conversation. And obviously, here I just pulled up the Wicked for Good release. There is this Chiron Pluto opposition.
Love it. Oh my goodness.
Incredible. He had talked about like how he's now, I'm in this phase of my life where things are going to get greenlit. And so I'm going to make as many things as I possibly can because I have this go right now. And I think that you calling out the nodal opposition, right? And this nodal opposition happening on his Lilith in Virgo, like what he couldn't do before and what he had to like, you had to do things the right way but he's proven himself over and over again between Crazy Rich Asians, he's going to be directing the Hot Wheels movie. He is going to be the Britney Spears biopic director. Like he's got a bunch of stuff coming out and I'm so incredibly excited for him. And then also when you think about that Mars in Leo, right? So two things. Next year, the nodes move into Leo and Aquarius. So big for him as well. But then also there's a Venus retrograde in the second half of next year, and he has a Venus in Scorpio as well. So that Venus's retrograde is actually going to station on his sun, I think around 8 or 9 degrees. It's safe to say, like, there's more to come.
That is very, very exciting. And what I've also noticed about his chart is like the Jupiter conjunct North Node in Virgo, which is exact. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like that makes so much sense with the grandness of what he's creating, especially
Hmm.
the detail and the thoughtfulness, because he was so good at really thinking about the small little details, which I really see as Virgo, of being like very
Hmm.
much like this attention to detail. I can also see that as like the wedding planning aspect too, of like, okay, there's
Totally.
attention to detail aspect. So then the South Node being in Pisces, like he already has a natural gift of
Hmm.
this Jupiter energy, but then for Jupiter to be in Virgo in his chart, there's like this really good balance of like, yes, this is grand. Yes, this is amazing, but it's also speaking truth in a place of, okay, but what am I actually saying with this? Because it's not just grand to be grand. Times Jupiter energy, the dark side of Jupiter that I like to point out is wanting more, 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 or just wanting um the aesthetics of things being really big and grand.
Hmm.
Whereas, like the other aspect of Jupiter, when you have more of a balanced Jupiter, or you have a Jupiter where you're aware of the limitations, then you can really see actually, no, it's about speaking truth. It's actually about like
Hmm.
bigger that can help more people in or seek knowledge and share my wisdom around
Hmm.
this.
Hmm. I think that's actually a really beautiful thought that we're gonna like keep exploring and unpacking, especially as it relates to that question I asked you earlier. But I couldn't help obviously but pull up the Wizard of Oz chart to just see even the connections between the both of them. I mean, just that Jupiter on the Virgo sun of the Wizard of Oz. He was the wizard to bring this into this new era. And now I come back to you again. What is Jupiter trying to get us to learn right now?
I love this question. The aspect of what you said, like inspiration, is really, really
Hmm.
needed in a leader. Like you need someone to uplift, you need someone to really show you what's possible and to dream bigger and to also really encourage and inspire. And again, the aspects though, it's funny because when I think of Jupiter and the idea of leader, like you always have to go back to Saturn too, because if you don't have
Hmm.
Saturn and you're just Jupiter, there's the aspect of Jupiter kind of, I want to say self-sabotaging sometimes, in the aspect of thinking so much about the grass is greener on the other side. Analogy of like, okay, let's do a perfect world. Let's have this vision, and that's needed. You need to be
Hmm.
Delulu, yes. I see that a lot with Jupiter energy and the wisdom behind it, but then at the same time, we need some Saturn for a leader. We need some Saturn for making a plan and being consistent and telling some truth of like, okay, maybe this didn't happen, but this is going to happen, or really not overpromising with, Jupiter energy. Like if you get into the dark side of Jupiter energy, it could be maybe overpromising certain situations and then burning out, not being able to sustain, whereas Saturn sustains. So you kind of
Hmm.
need Saturn when it comes to ruling a village or being a good leader in that aspect is what I
Hmm.
see.
Yeah, like Jupiter is the judge and then Saturn is the law, right? And so you have to have both. You have to have someone that can interpret the law, but then maybe offer hope, but then you also need fundamental structures in place so that nothing goes off the rails. I do think it is interesting when you talk about self-sabotage in the context of Glinda again, because obviously, it was very Libra coded, Jupiter Libra moon coded Ariana Grande's chart when she was like, maybe start a rumor, right, about Nessa, about this, and then that kind of got out of hand, and then ultimately Nessa dies, right? And I think what I love is the humanization, the idea of she wanted this ideal so badly to the point where it just wasn't happening. And so it's like, what do I do now to get it? But then you realize, like, the more you try to hold on to that false sense of hope, you then ultimately kind of you're your own worst enemy and you've now caused even more problems. And so you have to own it and take accountability. But online chatter was like very harsh on Glinda, she's really the wicked one. And I'm like, maybe the whole point was the song. I have been changed for good because I knew you. That's the journey. That is the South Node. It doesn't matter. It's what you've learned as a function of your relationship with this person. Very South Node to be overcritical.
Yeah, oh my goodness. Yeah, there was a lot, like I did hear more criticism with this movie, which is very interesting. And one of my friends who I went to see the movie with, like she really mentioned it as a lot of people like to think that they're like Elphaba and then that they are doing the things that they're speaking out against, what is wrong in the world and they're doing all these things, but then in actuality, they're more like Glinda. I think it's really understanding that aspect, and I do feel like Glinda has made, I would say, the biggest character development
Yes.
throughout the movie, which is great because also that makes a good movie if you have a
Yes.
strong character arc and you're getting surprised, you're warming up to a person, you're warming up to this character. So I do feel like at the beginning, it's understanding like we need that growth. Like no one is born perfect. Yes, there's ultimately like the beauty of like childhood innocence and what we truly wanted as a kid. I also really loved that they did flashbacks to their childhood
Yes.
selves. My Leo son loved that so much. Chiron
Yes.
Leo loved that so
As I
much.
say, Cancer Moon too, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yes, and I think that really just showed the element of like inner child healing for them both of like, okay, why
Mhm.
are they the way that they are, which is really needed to for the story and very necessary for a lot of the arc. So I don't know, I feel like the harsh criticism makes sense with the South Node in Virgo, but I do feel like it was unnecessary and also just more so the sake of judgment for the sake of it, or
Mhm.
there was just so much high expectations, which is another issue with the South Node
Mhm.
in Virgo, that again, when you have those high expectations, which I know as like a stellium, I have a stellium in Virgo, it's like when you have high expectations, you're going to get disappointed because even though, yes, it could be an amazing thing, I think of like the Four of Cups tarot card. Have all these amazing things, but you're not getting maybe the exact thing you wanted, but that's okay because you still have such like amazing things around you.
Wow, yeah, I really like that. I think that is a beautiful place to leave off because honestly, I could probably talk like 10,000 more things about Wicked. When I started this conversation, I wasn't necessarily anticipating this long of a conversation, but at the same time, it's like such a rich, astrologically rich pop culture moment. So I'm so thankful that you were here today to hash that out with me. So thank you, Tati. Is there anything else you want to say about Wicked, astrology?
No, I think we dove very deep, which is great for the agent of Pluto, which I love. So thank you so much for inviting me for this and for your deep dive. This was so enriching. This was so fascinating. I loved being here. So I'm excited to hear everyone's thoughts. So if anyone's watching this, feel free to share your thoughts on it.
Yes, why you liked the movie, what you hated about the movie, and more importantly, if there's anything that we've said that you want us to dive deeper on, please leave us some questions. As always, take care of yourselves, take care of each other. I will be back with another drop. I haven't decided how I'm going to conclude the year yet, so this is why you got to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Haha! Take care, all.